you may take whatever I've said with a grain of salt, but there are certain things that I believe support the case of what is actually going to happen. And you don't really necessarily have to do your own research as much as you need to look at the signs of what other people are doing. Now, I remember 2020, Warren Buffett was reported to having done something that did not receive a lot of attention, and I'm not even sure you've actually heard of it. So if you're familiar with Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, he's one of the greatest living investors of all time. And he reads for 8 hours a day. 8 hours a day. That's like his full-time thing, and he loves it. He tap dances on the way to work, right? So if you can tap dance your way to work to read for 8 hours a day, you gotta love what you're doing. Because I know sometimes I'll be reading a book and I'll just kind of fall asleep, right? Especially if the material is dense. So instead of necessarily not having, let's say the time to devote 8 hours to actually reading all those books, I look at the folks that are doing big things. And so in Warren Buffett's case, he is a value investor. So unlike most investors that are just looking to see where the price is actually going to go, he's a value investor. So he does something very special and very unique. When he buys a company, he looks to see when will his investment give him his original investment back. When does he get paid back? That's the first thing he looks at. And that's incredibly important because with value investing, essentially, you're creating money out of thin air. As soon as you actually have an investment paid off, everything that is paying you after that point, you're getting for free, right? So he is a very shrewd individual, and just by watching and seeing what he does can tell you a lot about what's actually happening. Now, he did something that has never been done recently, okay? And what he did is he decided to withdraw or pull out from particular industries for investment. And do you know what those industries were? One big one was the airline industry. So if you ever flown a plane, it can get you pretty fast from, let's say, the East Coast or the West Coast around the world. He withdrew his investments from transportation in regards to airlines. Now, if you've seen the airlines, they've been hurting because not as many people are flying. There's a lot of concerns as far as the pandemic and, what's the risk? So not as many travelers are going anywhere. Most folks are staying home or staying local, right? So he saw that. And he made that pullback from the airline industry. So that's one pretty big thing. If I look at the airline industry, I look at that as transportation on, let's say, a grand scale. And Warren Buffett pulled out of that. But that's not the only thing. Warren Buffett pulled out of banks. He pulled out of the financial industry. Now think about it. Banks are one of the best proven track records, ways for actually making money. If you think about it, it's kind of ingenious. What a bank does is it doesn't actually risk any of its own money. It risks your money. So what I mean by that is every time you decide you're going to deposit money into a bank, that bank takes your money and it lends it to other people. Now here's the thing. That money, that's not the bank's money. That's your money. So what the bank can do is it can take that money that you deposited, and the way the government works, they'll let that bank lend 10 times the amount of whatever that deposit was to someone else. That could actually still be you. So the bank can literally take the money that you deposit and it can loan it back to you and make money on that, right? So when I say proven tracking record, if you can make a lot of money with little risk, that's a model for success. Now, with all of that taken into bearing, you had Warren Buffett pull his money out of the banks. He pulled it out of the banks. Now, I'm not sure if you've seen what your bank has been doing to adapt to these new times with the pandemic, but they are very different to say the least. And sometimes you just have to look for the little signs. The little signs such as some of the credit card offers that you've probably received before, they've kind of dried up a little bit. the amount of scale, let's say, of the business that some of the banks are doing, they've had to change some of the tactics that they actually use in order to make money because those tactics aren't working anymore. You have super low interest rates and people not wanting to actually spend their money. So, telltale signs. So those are the big two. Those are the big two for me. But what's even bigger, is there something bigger than that? Bigger than pulling out of the airline industry and pulling out of the finance industry? Oh, that's right. This little hint I think I got from Kiyosaki. Warren Buffett is hedging his bets into gold mining companies. Gold mining companies. So he's not even invested as far as something that's going to be spitting out US dollars. He's investing in something that is considered God's money, and that's gold. And if you heard anything about Kiyosaki, he makes very similar bets when it comes to gold. And that's a story for another day. But if you look at where everything is headed and what the value of the dollar is, you definitely want to do some research there. You want to understand what money actually is. And I think I'm playing a Playday right now. And this right here, you may think this is actually worthless, but it's not too far off from what a real American dollar would actually be worth. It's coming down to this pretty much. But again, that's another story for another episode. Just wanted to focus today on prediction. So again, you can take my predictions with a grain of salt, but I know what I'm seeing in this world, and I know what it's laying out to be or looking like. And again, if you're ready for it, huge opportunity. But if you're not, man, it might be the reverse. And so, if anything, I want to make sure I share the message so nothing's catching you by surprise. That's the biggest thing right now. Look for the signs of what's going on around you. And if you're curious enough about it, dig in and learn as much as you can, because there are some big opportunities coming up. And again, I hope you can make the most of them. So I appreciate you tuning into this episode. I know this one was a special one with prediction because for the stuff I said in the previous two, it's like, what's this guy talking about? But if anything I'm saying resonates or makes sense, again, I appreciate your feedback. Let me know if you'd like to hear more content about what's going on. Again, I always love sharing. And I got to get back to playing some games because that's where I'm learning a lot of this stuff, just putting everything together, seeing what works and what doesn't work. And then you can do that in a safe environment too. So I appreciate you tuning in. Thanks, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Bye.